The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Well, here we go. It is the big wrap, your post-game show with your opinions that you can weigh in on Twitter or on our YouTube page. We look to be joined by some very special guests, including perhaps Jimmy Himes and Josh Ward, Caleb Giroux as well. Depending on how post-game press conferences goes, we'll get live reports from Neyland Stadium with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, brought to you by the Hemp House of Chattanooga and Herald Group Security Solutions. Tell you more about that in a moment. First of all, let me start with this. Tennessee does get the win, but in very unimpressive fashion as they struggle against Austin Peay. So I'm going to put you on the spot first and say, Caleb Calhoun, you pick one word to describe the Vols' 30-13 win in the home opener at Neyland Stadium.
I can't emphasize this word enough because just saying it seems like it'll be too casual, but it was lethargic. But I went lethargic in like all capital letters because that was lethargic. I mean, they looked like they wanted to get out of that stadium, particularly after the weather delay, I think. It just seemed like they didn't want to play the game.
I got a sense that I'll pick my word. Concerning, because that's two times in a row, and Daniel goes with disheartening. That is two times in a row that Joe Milton has had a streak of accuracy issues, and this time I thought it affected Tennessee's play calling. So I think this is bigger than just a game that you didn't play well against Austin Peay. I think it's bigger than that. I think that that streak of one for his first 8 caused them to just call check down plays after that. At that point, it wouldn't have blown me away if Nico had a run out there at halftime. And some of those catches were perhaps catchable, but you can't have those sort of streaks, Caleb, against Florida, Georgia, Alabama, maybe Florida. But you can't have those streaks against good teams. So if you're really thinking about a championship, those have to stop as of the Austin Peay game, or you're not really thinking about a championship. You're thinking about being loyal to a guy and a championship. And there's two different things.
Yeah, and that goes back to what we talked about last week, and I think this issue with Joe Milton is more extreme than we realized, which I think Joe Milton's issue is when things go a little negative, he spirals. And I mean, Dave, he panics and spirals completely. He's the ultimate front runner. And I think when Austin Peay got that 3-0 lead, I honestly think Joe Milton first came out there. He hadn't even played a drive yet, and I think the first thing in his mind was, oh my gosh, we're losing 3-0 to Austin Peay. I really think that was in his mind, and you saw it. I will say this, and I'm going to say a few things in defense of Joe Milton. First of all,
I would truly hope, though, and I don't know what's going through his head, but if you're thinking about that early and you're concerned, that's troublesome.
It is, but it's been a troublesome factor of Joe Milton since he lost his starting job. I think he panics, and I think he panics very quickly. And he told us, I mean, he talked about it at SEC Media Days that he had an issue with confidence. Dave, I'm sorry, but that is concerning. That was concerning in the summer, and it's really showing now. I'll say this. So for people who think Joe Milton got it right and settled down, no, that's not what happened. You're right, Dave. What happened was they just did checkdowns the rest of the game. Basically, they didn't even give him a chance to be accurate. I will say no one really expected Joe Milton to be on target with exactly on target with a lot of these throws, particularly over the middle. You got a 5-star receiver in Brew McCoy, who we think is the best NFL prospect on this team. He had 3 drops tonight. You got Squirrel White, who we raved about in camp. He had 2 drops tonight. You look at those guys and you think, yes, Joe Milton wasn't on target, but they got to make those catches.
I do want to say this. We're probably having an overlap of a couple of those, and I don't want to break down each and every drop or miscatch, but I did think the 1 of 8, so the 7 of those were about you would like for your guys to catch 1 in 3 of those 7. 33%. I thought they were that difficult of catches. So I don't know if we're overlapping some, but would you agree the 1 for 8 was more on Milton than it was his receivers? I want to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, it was. It was because most outside of maybe 2 drops, almost all the drops were they were a little bit off target. Receivers had to make back shoulder catches when they're going over the middle, things like that. But at the same time, I would say that if you're a 5-star receiver and an NFL prospect, you got to kind of make that catch, and that's kind of why you're picked up.
Fair, but there were a couple of balls that I could go the other way. One of the balls that was called dropped, and it depends whether or not you're watching the television commentators. I was flipping back and forth and heard Pat Ryan for a little bit. And he was clearly concerned in the first quarter, former Tennessee quarterback, with Joe Milton's lack of accuracy. And there was one play that was called a drop when in reality it was thrown behind him. So yes, we could go tit for tat on that all day long. And I thought the ball was stripped away because it was behind him. But nevertheless, I mean, I think it is a major concern. And I think the question now may be, has Josh Heupel done enough so that if it comes to this, that Nico is ready to step in a big game? Because in this type of situation, as poorly as he was playing, if that's halftime of a big game that you're not a lot better than, I think you may pull the plug on that one.
Yeah, I mean, what would this game have been if Tennessee was playing Florida tonight?
If this is Florida at home, and you've got a guy who's already lost his job once. He had accuracy issues last week, and he's having worse accuracy issues this week. I'm not sure that you wouldn't have made a change there.
Yeah, and this is going to be all on Milton's mentality at this point. Because, again, we've seen that the accuracy can be there. I feel like sometimes he has these moments where, like, when everybody's doubting him, he kind of turns out. But I will say that he can also wilt beneath the pressure. And I think that, look, I mean, we heard it tonight. Neyland Stadium booed him for a minute. And
I thought I heard that one to confirm that with you as well.
Yeah, he got booed. And I understand the frustration. I will say that Milton, again, how does he respond to this? Because look, if you watch Milton's body of work, the accuracy is there. It can be, but this happened at Michigan, where he would start strong and then he'd have a few rough patches, and then it just spirals on the snowball starts with him. And I do think that happened with him here. So the question becomes, is he the Milton of old, which means the snowball has started because tonight was a bad night for him? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Or does he regroup and get out and return to kind of what he was against Virginia? Because against Virginia, there was one drive. We can agree on this. There was only one drive that Milton was off target against Virginia. For the most part, he was on target and he hit all the throws.
He had an 0 for 4 streak, if I remember correctly.
Right. Where all 4 misses were on him, pretty much.
Yes. And
everything else from the Virginia game was fine, I think.
I agree.
And so, but you're right. This one, he was 1 of 8. They didn't really let him do much after that. But again, I mean, we're talking like, okay, what if one of those catches is made? What if Jabari Small catches that screen pass in the fourth quarter? What if Ramel Keaton doesn't fumble? All of a sudden, we're looking at Milton's stat line where he's got close to 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I know it's against Austin Peay. Don't get me wrong, but I think there were I think there were a lot of other problems in this game along with Milton. There were a lot of issues with the way this team played tonight.
Yep. And
at least of which I bet them to cover the 64 point over, and they let me down, but
Yeah, and I don't want to hear any of the, it was delayed because of weather and that sort of thing. And listen, it was delayed for both teams, and I don't know which is more awkward. As a matter of fact, Tennessee's players have told me over and over they hate being on the road in a night game period because you have to wait around all day. So can you imagine getting there to the stadium and waiting an extra 30 minutes? So maybe you didn't have the tea. Maybe you didn't have the pregame atmosphere to feed off of. Does that have, leading to your word lethargic, which you used to describe the game, does that give them any sort of excuse whatsoever? I said I don't want to hear it, but I am curious. I kind of cut you off because I knew which direction you would go.
Well, no, I mean, I would say that I think they were going to be lethargic in this game no matter what. It felt like they didn't want to play this game. I think the weather added to that. So I think the weather turned what maybe would have been like a 40-10 score into a 30-13 score. But in reality, this is a game that should have been a 63-0 score. So it's...
Yeah, it should have been 63-0. That was not a very good football team. Taking out South Carolina, this is the worst Josh Heupel coached game since.
Worst game.
Not necessarily coach, but the worst game played by a Josh Heupel team since. You can't take South Carolina.
I mean, I could. You know, it reminded me of Joe Milton's first start, Tennessee. Josh Heupel's first game at Tennessee against Bowling Green in 2021 when Tennessee won 38-6. That one was a pretty ugly game, but I mean, this one was worse. I'll say that. You know, if you want to say, I mean, it's hard because, like, okay, what about, you know, when they lost to Georgia 42-20 or something like that in 2021? I mean, like,
you're kind of expected to do that, right?
Right, exactly. So it's like it's hard for me to come at them for that. So
okay, let's talk some of the positives here on the flip side. It's been a little bit longer on Joe Milton, but I do think that is a real concern. So if you're just now tuning in, I encourage you to listen to why I think it's so disconcerting the way Joe Milton played today and my questions about that. And be sure, and I want to let you know that when it comes to fantastic security, Harrell's Group Security Solutions, leadership experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques. They can also make your children safer one school at a time. Let your school administrators know about Harrell Group Security Solutions. We've certainly seen tragedies happen around this country. So, Caleb, the guy that most recently posted on our YouTube kind of got after you a little bit. When is Aaron Beasley losing his job? You've been a little bit hard on Aaron Beasley. I was kind of like non-committal, to be real honest with you. But they do bring in Elijah Herring and didn't play as much Arian Carter as we had been led to believe. And it seemed as if Beasley, for the most part, was able to play free and not be stuck in the middle of that running box. And maybe part of that is getting Herring more time. But I thought Beasley played particularly well. He led the team in 9 tackles and played really well.
Had 9 tackles, 8 solo, 2 sacks, 5 tackles for a loss. Should have had a forced fumble. That was a fumble on that play.
Yep, good question.
So Beasley played a great game. I'm one of those when you play FCS teams, Dave, I'm very much one of those, though. You can only look at the negatives. You can't look at the positives because you are kind of playing air when you're playing these teams.
Well, okay, so let's throw this out there. Wesley Walker, I think played well.
Yeah, Wesley Walker. People are going to tell Kamal Hadden for the interception, but I actually thought Kamal Hadden had more negatives than positives in this game. If you look at him and how he was playing in the secondary, but you're right. Wesley Walker had a key 4th down sack. There was I think Tyler Barron had a sack. Karat Garland early had a sack, and also Joshua Josephs had 2 sacks. Funny enough, we heard about James Pierce last week, who did have another sack, by the way. James Pierce has 3 sacks on the year now.
See, that's where I get back to the 1 for 8, not to be a broken record. But if you're 6 for 8, which was very doable, that's it. The other thing I wrote about in the column on offthehooksports.com. 2 points I want to make. One, he's missing the same passes that I thought he threw incredibly well against Clemson, right? Not so much in the Virginia game. This game, it's the digs and the slants and the stuff underneath that I thought he might be better than Hendon Hooker at. So he's missing those balls. So don't tell me it's because he has trouble controlling his arm. It's a touch thing. And missing those balls, I thought was a big deal. And you go 1 for 8 against an Alabama, Georgia. That could cost you a quarter, which would cost you 10 points, and you have no chance of winning the game. I mean, it's just the margin is that thin, Caleb, and I'm not trying to overstate it, but if you come out there and do a 1 of 8 against Georgia, what are your chances of winning the rest of that game? 10%?
Yes. Okay, well, last year, Georgia, yeah, but not this year, Georgia, because I'm just going to say –
that's true.
I'm going to say it. If you guys – we're talking about Milton. Guys, Tennessee's not the only fan base in the SEC worried about its quarterback play right now. If you guys have been watching – I mean, Alabama's worried again about their quarterback play. And so it's bad in the SEC this year.
No, I agree. It's very bad. We knew
Carson
it
Beck's not a
last
good
year.
quarterback.
I guess we knew it last year when 6 quarterbacks showed up to SEC Media Days, and the first thing I thought is, man, what's 2023 going to be like? Because every time, every time there's a big group of these dudes, I think it was Eli and maybe Tim Couch in the same year, and I was thinking, what's next year going to look like? So this team obviously has an issue at quarterback, and is there any ounce of you? I kind of believe that this team, maybe it was a chemistry thing with the receivers. Is there any part of you that makes that an excuse any longer, or is that out the door?
No, it's not an excuse any longer, particularly when Joe Milton and Squirrel White specifically developed a lot of chemistry last year when they were playing together. So I don't think that's an excuse at all. I'll say on the other, and one thing that I want to say that I think kind of threw Tennessee off a little bit, and it wasn't just the weather. Scotty Weldon, I guess that was his name for Austin Peay. He threw out every single trick he had in the book for this game, which, by the way, for those questioning, FCS teams don't usually do that when they're playing FBS teams because they're going to get blown out. They save it for their FCS schedule. Scotty Weldon didn't care. He's like, I'm going to go all in with Tennessee, burning all of his timeouts just to keep Tennessee from running its tempo in the third quarter. Look, we can call that crazy. That's why Tennessee didn't run away with the game, honestly, because I think he felt that Tennessee was running away with the game if they were going to score there, and he burned all his timeouts, and it worked. And I think we gotta pause and say he literally threw the kitchen sink at this game.
No, that's fair, and you're right. Most teams don't do that at Division II. Portions of the program also brought to you by the Hemp House, a premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you and yours only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. That is online. That is easy to find. It'll be down below. Hemp House Chat, CHATT.com, hemphousechat.com. My other concern with Milton is that I have long believed that there is a glass ceiling on certain sports endeavors. I was an okay guy playing basketball, but I could never shoot. I never had a natural touch. Could I have gone from a 60% free throw shooter to a 70% free throw shooter? Probably. But was I ever going to get to 95 or 90? No. So I think we've seen so much of these, and I think that's the same with accuracy when you're throwing a football. I think you can only get so much better. So if we're saying Joe Milton is now a C+ among SEC quarterbacks, is that fair? Can he even get to an A? Is it possible at this point, or have you made up your mind based on what you've seen not only this year but in previous outings?
I made up my mind heading into this year that he was a C+ max on accuracy. Never believed in his accuracy. I don't care what we were being told at SEC Media Day. I know what I saw with my eyes when I watched him play. And I thought the reason I didn't think it was a concern with the C+ accuracy was because Heupel's offense was still going to scheme about 10 plays a game where receivers were just bare down the sideline. And if you have C+ accuracy, you can hit on 3 of those. And that's where I was at with it.
Let me ask you this. What's more important, that Tennessee fans believe in Joe Milton or that Tennessee fans believe that Josh Heupel had the foresight to get a guy called Nico ready to play early? Because Hendon Hooker was ready to play. It may have been the wrong decision to play Milton first, right? But
absolutely.
Hendon Hooker was he was ready to play. However,
and Josh
snaps in practice.
And what I will say in Josh Heupel's defense, because I've been critical of him from the start with Milton, when he made the switch. So remember, Hooker comes in because Milton got hurt. Milton was fully healthy for the Missouri game in 2021, and we didn't know who he was going to start between Hooker and Milton. And Heupel made the decision to start Hooker that day when it hadn't been clear cut yet that Hooker was better. So that was it wasn't like it was an obvious thing to go with Hooker when he put Hooker back in. So I will give him credit for that. I think it's more important the first one to believe in Joe Milton. And the only reason I say that, Dave, is look, Nico, I don't know if you know, there was questions if he was going to dress tonight because he got banged up.
Yeah,
and
no, I'm aware.
He is still not where he needs to be conditioning wise, I think. And so I think you have to have look, I think Tennessee's success this year is going to be tied to Milton, and I know that's concerning.
You're saying basically you're saying that no matter how highly rated Nico may be or what we've heard about him, we've heard nothing but good things. That if they have to turn to that, a backup freshman quarterback, you're essentially saying nobody's winning a championship this season, basically, right?
Nobody. It's not going to happen. And it's not, I'm not like a believer in like, oh, he's got to learn the offense or anything like that. No, it's not that. It's just legitimately Nico, I don't think is physically where he's got to be yet. And he put on about 20 pounds, I think, in the offseason, which is good. But he seems very fragile, Dave. I just feel like he would get wrecked if he stepped out there right now. And I don't mean wrecked mentally. I think physically he'd get cut in half or broken in half. So
yeah, you're right on the message board. Heupel was forced to play Hooker because Joe was injured. Yeah, that is correct. Here's the other thing. As far as I know, he's banged up right now, but if there's a decision to be made 2 or 3 weeks from now, and I agree with you, he needs to eat a lot of sandwiches between now and the time he plays for real. Okay. He needs to put on a lot of weight, but here's with Milton. I got it. Josh Heupel goes out and gets him. So why wouldn't you want to start your guy? He's incredibly talented. I mean, it's like a race car driver looking at an okay car like Hendon Hooker's. He's an Oldsmobile. He's nice. He's comfortable. But on this side, you've got a Lamborghini because of his ability. What are you going to choose? I get that. But Nico is a Lamborghini as well, physically. And he also picked Nico to go after. So that's another reason that I wonder what's going through his brain if and when Nico is healthy and Joe Milton continues to have these troubles.
Okay, but what about Heupel's ego in this sense? And look, you said it yourself. Josh Heupel's cocky, not in a negative way, but he is cocky. He's got. I think
everybody at that level has to be cocky, or I would probably prefer confidence, but yes, cocky.
Yes, but even relative to like that level, Heupel's not insecure. He is firmly like convinced that he's doing it right. I mean, he's Lane Kiffin without the mouth in that way. And
yeah. Okay, so where are you going here? That he's so secure he could make a change, or that he's so confident he's not going to change it because he made his decision, he's going to stick by it?
I'm going here. He would shatter his own ego if he benched Joe Milton for this reason. Do you know how bad you know how much he has to question himself in his own evaluation of talent if he made the decision to start over Hendon Hooker, a guy who 2 years later would lose his starting job to a freshman?
Okay, I'm going to play it the other way. I think he would have the confidence and has the fan equity to pull a trigger like that. And this could turn into a 2 or 3 loss season. And he's got the equity. And then you say, you've got this guy who's going to be a star. All of this is if he's healthy and plays well. These are huge theoreticals, right?
Yeah, but, gigantic theoreticals.
Yes. But I don't know. I find the decision-making very interesting. So does this change how you view, because you've used the just mentally not ready for whatever reason. Lethargic is the word that Caleb chose when we began the program. So he's kind of putting it on that. And I've been around a lot of teams like that, Vanderbilt and Kentucky, every time Tennessee played them. It seemed for a number of years, a lot of lethargy. And so if you just think it's that, I think it may be a little deeper in that they've got real quarterback issues. Did that game change the way you view the Florida game whatsoever?
No, because
Florida's as bad.
They're so poorly coached that I think it might change how Vegas feels. I'll put it that way. I think they might change. It might change how Vegas feels. And yeah, I'm going to drop Tennessee in my SEC power rankings this week. I just want you guys to know that up front. They're going to take a bit of a nosedive because of this game.
It's definitely troubling that Florida is handling, and it's mid-game, but it's out of hand. So I'm not going to quote you a score because I don't know when you're watching, but it's handling McNeese State a lot like Tennessee should have Austin Peay. That's a little disconcerting.
You can never really judge with how they handle FCS schools, though. I mean, or like really low-level FBS schools. Don't forget, Georgia beat Penn State. I think the exact score was, or not Penn State, Kent State. I think the exact score was 30-13 last year. I think that was the exact score, which was the Tennessee Austin Peay game. Kent State basically is Austin Peay, but Division 1.
I'm smelling a column by Caleb Calhoun there. All right, there's already several stories up. Let's go ahead and take a look at the website right now, and you can certainly keep us up, and we'd love to visit with you and continue. And we may have a special guest. We'll see. But what all do we have up on the site now that people can peruse while we talk through perhaps a guest or two?
All right, so we got the 5 takeaways. We got your column on the Vols have history against him and a quarterback issue, and we've got the turning point from the game.
All right, so that's all up there, and I've got some pretty strong thoughts on Tennessee and not holding an open quarterback competition in the offseason, which they didn't do. And I'm not talking about Gaston Moore, obviously. I'm talking about Nico. But there was no competition. That was pretty obvious. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. We will see you each and every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. We certainly appreciate Hemp House Chattanooga. I'm telling you what, you can go there, go to hemphousechat.com. Know that you're getting the best in quality CBD or Delta products. And Herald Group Security Solutions, leadership experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques and making your children safer one school at a time. We've heard about tragedies. Don't be afraid to ask your administrators, especially at a private school, about Herald Group Security Solutions. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation